Welcome to the Coach Within. I'm your host, Coach Jedi, a podcast where transformation begins from the inside out. Here, we explore coaching conversations that unlock clarity, spark insight, and bring you closer to your purpose. Whether you're a coach, a leader, or someone on the journey of personal growth, you're in the right place. Each episode brings real stories, practical tools, and thought-provoking reflections to help you thrive in life, leadership, relationships, and dreams. Let's journey inward, ignite the coach within, and brave your story. I'd like to get started this series on how to develop your coaching competency skill sets for the different levels of credentialing and different levels of mastery. At the very first level, sometimes we call this level 1, we're targeting towards an ACC level, which is an Associate Certified Coach level. At level 2, we're moving along the credentialing pathway towards a PCC level, which is a Professional Certified Coach level. And level 3, it's a MCC level, which is Master Certified Coach level. Now, is there anything beyond that? Well, stay tuned for more because I'm going to share with you what happens even after MCC level. And I thought today, what I want to kind of do is kind of break down the very first layer or first level of coaching competency, which we call sometimes the ACC or level 1 minimum skill requirement. And I'm going to do a series of videos and podcasts to really kind of help you to understand the various requirements and also give you some ideas of how you can better practice towards your ACC level, PCC, and MCC level. Now, always remember this, that mastering coaching isn't about arriving at a certain credential level. Mastering coaching is a coaching mindset that says, hey, you know what? Let's continue to learn, let's continue to grow, let's continue to improve, let's continue to advance our ability to do more, to engage our clients better, to allow the co-creation to happen in that space. So it's not about putting that accolade on our head, but really about deepening our skill sets. Far too often I've seen coaches, they're so excited to learn new models, new techniques, new tools, new frameworks, but they've never quite gotten within themselves. Developing themselves within, exploring who they are as an individual. Because you see, in the coaching process, it's not about who has accumulated 1,000 different skill sets, tools, techniques, certificates. It's about just that one person and the other person in front of us having that intimate conversation, a authentic conversation, a conversation that's real, that removes any form of facade, any form of kind of fakeness or rigidity, and just have that pure sense of a conversation in that moment. And our role as coaches is to really hold that space for the clients. You see, it's not about how much we know, it's really about how we can support the client in the best possible way. So I hope in this series of videos, it will really help you sharpen your skill sets. So I'm going to begin first at the ACC level for competency number 3. Now, the ICF, International Coaching Federation, has developed over the years 8 core competencies, and we call them core competencies, which means that there are the supporting competencies, augmenting competencies, competencies that extends beyond the core. Now, why are this called the 8 core? Because these are essentially what you will see across most coaching conversations, regardless whether it is leadership coaching, life coaching, relationship coaching, parenting coaching, kids coaching, youth coaching, coaching for managers, first-time leaders, career transition, agentic coaching, geriatric coaching, coaching for voice, coaching for sports. They all have this common core competency, and we call them core competencies. Now, you have competency 1, which is on ethical practice, competency 2, which is on coaching mindset, and the assessment for performance evaluation, which means your ability to conduct a coaching conversation, begins very much here. Now, of course, competency 1 and 2 are essential within the conversation context itself, but when we talk about skill sets that we want to see and observe and evidence within the conversation, very much we begin here at competency number 3, which is about establishing or establishes and maintains agreements. So what I'm going to share with you, it's about how you as a coach can actually deepen your understanding of agreements. Now, another word for agreement sometimes we hear as contracting, coming to terms, coming to an outcome, coming to some goals. And these are kind of interchangeable words: agreements, contracting. Different schools will have different words to represent the similar ideas. But the ICF says this: in ICF Core Competency number 3, establishes and maintains agreements. The definition of that is partnering with the client and relevant stakeholders to create clear agreements about the coaching relationship, process, plans, and goals, establishes and agreements for the overall coaching engagement as well as those for each coaching session. So what you find here is that there is this engagement with the client, and we call that agreement. There is an overarching one, which is how you set up your conversations, the administrative aspects of it, the logistical aspects of it, the aspects of how you would kind of keep the client's data, confidentiality clause, privacy clause, stakeholder management, sponsors. All this form the formative agreement. And in each session, we call this the sessional agreement. So, what does it mean when we say establishes and maintains agreements? Generally speaking, there are two levels. One is the overarching, which I call formative agreement. The other is sessional, which we call specific agreement for each coaching session. Now, the length of time for each coaching session isn't just an hour long or 45 minutes long. It depends on how you set up your coaching process. For some people, it may be 30-minute session. For others, it may be 20-minute session. Yet for others, it's 45 minutes. Some are 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. The setup of each session really depends on how you and your clients come to that agreement. So in the overarching coaching relationship, we often say that this is what happens during the intake process, the discovery phase, the chemistry session, or the strategy session that we talk about, really about helping the client go deeper. The focus really is about performance, about what the client wants as an outcome, about what the focus the client feels that they want in that session. So it's really specific for each one of these coaching sessions. So for example, you may have an overarching topic that the client says, I want to talk about my career. But career, it's a huge topic, and we might want to chunk that down into smaller specific topics for each coaching session. So the focus then, it's really on that specific session that you will be assessed for your performance evaluation. Now that doesn't mean that you have to kind of get the client certain results or certain outcome, because what we're assessing is assessing the coach ability to demonstrate the core competencies. We're going to put the client's outcome or the client's impact or transformation aside first, because what we're evaluating is the coach skills within the process. Has the coach held space for the client? Has the coach demonstrated the basic ability to establish and maintain agreements? Now, sometimes clients gain value from the session because regardless of the levels of credentialing, you may be at ACC level, PCC level, MCC level, or even beyond, or just beginning your coaching sessions. The very nature of coaching already produces value for the clients. So clients will always gain some levels of value, but when we talk about skill sets and demonstratability of your coaching ability, it's assessed at the evidence or behavioral level, and that's why we define it at ACC, PCC, and MCC level. So what are the skill sets evaluated here? Well, for one, you're going to be evaluated based on, first, the clarity and depth in creating an agreement for the session. Was the session agreement clear? Were there enough exploration with the client? Or do you just take whatever the client says at the first instance and continue with it? Was there sufficient exploration? Did the coach partner with the client in a way to provide clarity, depth in creating the agreement for the client? Right? So that's the first one. The second, it's the coach's ability to partner and the depth of partnering with the client in the creation of the agreement, measures of success, and issues to be addressed. So here, what we begin to realize is how are you partnering the client? And by partnering, sometimes we use the word co-creating with the client, collaborating with the client. So there's an element of depth of exploration, element of depth of the ability to kind of go deeper, client-led and not coach-led, ability for you as the coach to really help the client articulate out what is it that the client wants from the session. So I know sometimes the word agreements sound a bit vague, a little bit broad, a little bit unknown, but think about agreements as the topic, the focus, the outcome. What is it that you want from the session? What areas needs to be addressed? What issues, what problems, what challenges, what performance areas that you like to talk about? And another element is really the measures of success. How would we know we've arrived at where you like to be by the end of the session? Those are the measures of success. And number 3, it's the coach's ability to attend to the client's agenda throughout the session. So you may have established within the first 5 to 10 minutes, but did you maintain on the agenda throughout the session, or has the agenda shifted to a different direction altogether? Now, if the client, through the coaching conversation, has gained a certain level of clarity, and sometimes they feel, hey, you know what, I want to pivot my conversation. That's when the role of the coach is really to invite the client and say, hey, would you like to consider, would you like to consider where you like to take this conversation forward? Would it be at the start? Would it be at the end? Would it be at the middle? So inviting the client to consider based on that new awareness, the new partnership, the new clarity, the new learnings, the new insights, how the client would like to move forward. That is the coach's ability to attend to the client's agenda throughout the session, unless otherwise guided by the client. Okay, so as a coach, even if I hear a second topic, a third topic, maybe I feel that the client should have gone to another different direction, that doesn't mean that my direction might always be correct. I have to allow the client to decide. Let the client choose where they want to go in the process. Now, so what is the minimum skills to pass? Well, at an ACC level, the minimum standard of skill must be demonstrated to achieve a passing score for this competency is that the coach invites the client to identify what the client wants to accomplish in the session, and the coach attends to that agenda throughout the coaching unless otherwise indicated by the client. So you are assessed based on this following behavioral statements. Okay, so remember this. These are behavioral statements. This doesn't mean that it's just one question or one statement of the coach, but did we observe the conversation between the coach and client through these various behaviors? Number 1, coach invites client to identify their desired coaching outcome. Was there evidence of that? What was the behavior? What were the questions asked? How did the client respond? Was there an invitation to identify their desired coaching outcome? Number 2, coach and client reach an agreement on what the client wants to accomplish in the session. Did we notice that? Did we evidence that? What was asked? What was said? Now notice this. Point 1 and 2 are so critical because if we have no idea what the desired outcome for that session is, how are we going to navigate through the entire rest of the conversation? Number 3, coach shows curiosity about the client and how the client relates to what they want to accomplish. So notice here, it's about the coach demonstrating a certain level of curiosity, not just about the topic, but about who the client is, about the client, and how the client relates to what they want. This is essentially the meaningfulness, the importance, the urgency. Why or what about this topic that the client brings in today's conversation that has such a great connection for the client today? What is that meaningfulness to the client? How does it support the client? What about this topic that impacts the client and why the client feels that this is a critical topic for themselves? And number 4, coach attends to the agenda set by the client throughout the session unless the client indicates otherwise. So throughout the conversation, when I'm observing, when I'm listening to your recordings, and when I'm reviewing and performing the role of an assessor for your recordings, I'm listening whether have you as the coach partnered the client, attending on through with the client to the client's agenda throughout the session. Unless something emerges and the client says, hey, can we shift the direction? That's when we check in. And so usually I would say you would do a little check in at the start, in the middle, and towards the end. Because sometimes halfway through the conversation, you might want to check in with the client to the progress of the conversation, whether the session is helping the client or whether something needs to be pivoted. Okay. Now, one of the things that we're going to ask ourselves is, so what must be demonstrated here? Well, the first thing is this: inviting the client to identify what they want to accomplish in the session and maintain attention on the agenda throughout the session, unless the client chooses to shift, which means that you as a coach must invite the client to define the topic. Notice this: the client to define, not the coach to define, not the coach to summarize the topic, but the client to define the topic and desired outcome for the session. Too often, I've heard many recordings and have heard many performance evaluation where the coach tells the client, I think we should do this, so let's do this, so let's do that. Whenever the coach starts with, so let's do this, I think we should do that, let's do this, it becomes coach-led and not client-led. You may ask, why is this important that the client is the one leading the session? Well, we ask the question again, who is the owner of that topic? Who has the responsibility? Who has the ownership? Who has the accountability for that outcome? Is it the client or is it the coach? Well, if we want to inspire change and ownership, we have to allow the client to be the one to embrace, own, take control of the topic that they desire. Because only then can they see for themselves how much do they really want this outcome. You see, as the coach, I want the best for the client. I want the client to get to the best of their abilities to achieve the outcome that they desire. But no matter how much I want for the client, unless and only if the client truly wants it for themselves, would that outcome and would that action or the subsequent action be sustainable? Have you seen or have you met clients or team members, or when you are coaching your team and you realize, why are they not able to keep towards the set of actions? Well, who defined those actions? Was it led by the leader? Was it led by the team? Who owned the outcome? Who owned the responsibility? You see, for us to kind of really allow that team to embrace it, or that client or that coachee to really embrace the outcome, it's to allow them to say, hey, this is what I want. This is really what I want. And when the client says, this is what I want, this is the outcome I desire, suddenly the accountability, the ownership now shifts from the role of the coach to the client. So the first thing, it's really inviting the client to define the topic and desired outcome for the session. The second, it's co-create clarity on what success will look like by the end of the session. You see, even if we have the topic and identified the outcome, how do we know that this session has helped the client? And the only way we will know it's by partnering the client, staying focused on that outcome, and helping the client to see what is it that they desire by the end of this session. So keeping on pace with the client, staying focused, inviting the client to define what that measures of success will look like for them by the end of the session. So that by the end of the session, we can look back and say, hey, have we helped you achieve the outcome that they desire? So a client can then put an assessment, evaluation of whether the session was helpful for them or not. Number 3, staying focused on the client's stated agenda as the conversation evolves. So it's really keeping on track. Now, as we keep on track, we are also mindful to hear and re-establish the agreements when or where possible. Because sometimes as we explore further, the client may have new emerging ideas. And so that's when we may consider shifting, changing, altering the direction based on where the client wants to go. So at the ACC level, you must minimally demonstrate these 3 areas. If you demonstrate these 3 areas, you'll receive a passing score. Now, to know what that really feels like and look like, I would invite you to engage a mentor coach or a certified mentor coach, someone like myself, an assessor, to really also help you understand where you are at your coaching recording levels. I've helped many coaches down through the years as well providing them with the context, and also understanding the local language that they speak. So you don't want to sound like someone who's using a very foreign way of expression, even in the language of English. Depending on the locality you're based in, depending on the countries you belong to, you want to be mindful of how you use English and express it in a very local, colloquial manner that your client can understand, in the context most appropriate for the organization, for the coaching relationship, for the individual, for the culture. And sometimes I would even encourage coaches, use what feels best for the client. Because when we use complex professional language, the client may not understand what you're asking. It sounds fanciful. It sounds nice to hear. But because we nuance it with such perfect grammar, perfect vernacular, perfect sentence structure, or semantics, the client is unable to understand what you're really asking him. So we have to come down to the level of the client. And that is something important. So let's go a little deeper for each one of those specific coaching behaviors. The first one is really coach inviting the client to identify their desired coaching outcome. So some examples could be, what would you like to work on today? What would feel meaningful to explore in our time together? Now, this is not say, let's work on your presentation skills today unless the client says so, which means that I do not tell the client, hey, you know what? I think let's do this. Let's work on this. Let's work on your self-esteem today. Let's work on your confidence today. If I'm the one telling the client, then it's the coach leading, not inviting. Invitation means that has to be a question. There has to be a response. There has to be something that we are inviting the client to come alongside. So the questions, what would you like to focus on? What would be most meaningful for you? What would you like to work on? What would you like to talk about today? What would you like to explore today? Think about some of these questions you can ask. The second, coach and client reach an agreement on what the client wants to accomplish. So some examples could be, by the end of the session, what would you like to walk away with? What will make this time valuable for you? What is most meaningful for you? Now, you want to avoid summarizing any implied outcomes. So typically, I always hear coaches do the so. So you want this. So you want to be more confident. So you want to gain the clarity. So you want to gain these action steps. When we do that, we are summarizing the implied outcomes for the client and not reflecting what the client's words and intents are. Allow the client to be the one summarizing the outcomes for themselves. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, coach shows curiosity about the client and how they relate to what they want to accomplish. Some examples would be, why is this focus important for you right now? How does this relate to the bigger picture of what you want in your work or life? Now, by doing so, it allows the agreement to become more personally meaningful, not just operational. So, when you ask the importance, the urgency, the meaningfulness of this topic in relation to who the client is, it creates a better connection, congruence, coherence of the why behind the what. And who is this person? Why is it important to the client? And what does it mean to the client if they're able to do that? So that curiosity is so critical for them. Number 4, coach attends to the agenda throughout the session. For example, as we explore this, how are we doing on what you want to get out today? Does this feel like supporting your intention for this session? Where are we right now in this conversation in regards to the outcome that you desire? So check in with the client regularly about whether the conversation direction is really supporting the client or the client feels that a shift needs to happen. So if you notice the conversation drifting, provide a check-in. My general principle is try to do a check-in in the middle and try to do a check-in at the end. And at the start. Of course, you need something at the start and then you do a check-in in the middle and check-in at the end. But of course, these are just guiding principles. You don't want to use it very rigidly. You want to kind of listen, tune in to the client. Sometimes in that process, we can feel, hey, I think now it's a great time. Let's tune in. Let's listen. Let's go in deeper. So if you notice the conversation drifting, check in. Don't correct or control, just co-create a recalibration if needed. Recalibrate the client, set the direction, and let's go. Okay. Now you may ask, Jedi, so what will cause me to fall below the ACC standard? Well, you will not pass if you choose the topic for the client, or you, the coach, think that, oh, what's important without aligning to the client's stated focus. Or you shift the conversation to a new topic without the client's clear agreement. So notice it's all about you, which means the coach focus. If it's the coach that is the one leading it, telling the client what to do, you should do this, you should do that, I think you should do that, then the one leading it's the coach and not the client. So even if the session is insightful and interesting, it does not reflect the client's agenda. It does not meet the ACC performance evaluation expectation. So you would fall below the standard, and because you fall below the standard, that particular recording would be a no-go. So it's important for us as we review our recordings to reflect on our recordings and ask ourselves, during or throughout this whole recording, was it coach-led? Was it client-led? Was it being forced upon the client? Or did I give the client space to explore what really happened in the conversation? Take time to go deeper with the client. Now, I want to share with us a very simple way to kind of practice this. And I've developed this over the years to help coaches to really aim better. Think about this like an arrow. We're trying to aim towards the outcome, towards the goal. And sometimes one of the key things that might happen as we are aiming, we might miss the mark. But there's a difference here. We can practice accuracy, we can practice precision. Accuracy and precision are a little bit of difference, right? So accuracy means how close you are to the center point. If the center point is your target, precision is how many times can you repeat that same thing. Have you seen before? Like I remember one time I was bowling, and by a stroke of luck, I was just rolling the ball, and it had a strike. All the pins fell, and I thought, wow, I must be so good at it. It feels like precision, but it wasn't. It was just pure luck, pure chance. I was not able to repeat that precision level again. Yet, a professional who may only have hit 9 pins and then requires another one to close that whole loop may be able to repeat the 9 pins consistently with higher precision level. That individual will far supersede an individual who just by a stroke of luck hits down all pins. You see, at the coaching level, it's not about just hitting one time. To me, what I really believe, mastering coaching, it's about you as the coach being able to consistently demonstrate a skill level consistent to the level you're pursuing. Too often, many ACC coaches, they just practice to pass the exam. Their whole notion is, can I pass? Can I pass? They come to me and say, Jedi, can I pass this exam? How far am I from passing? How far am I from failing? How much more should I need to do? What should I ask? How do I pass it better? When coaches start asking those questions, they lost the spirit of coaching. Coaching is not about trying to pass an exam. It's not about trying to not fail an exam. Coaching, it's about honoring that moment, having a respectable conversation, co-creating its space for the client. Today, with the democratization of coaching, I've seen many coaches being churned out from coaching schools. However, it's not that it's a bad thing, it's a great thing. But the standards of coaching have fallen. In my school, and in the coaching that I do, in the coaching education I do, and even in the mentoring that I do, and the supervision that I do, my first objective is to ensure the coaches have the right coaching mindset and mastery at the level of consistency and precision and accuracy, so that the coaches know exactly what they're doing. And they're consistently able to deliver coaching at a high level, not coaching at just a barely passable level. So even for ACC coaches, I challenge them. I say, hey, prepare a recording, practice, aim higher, and achieve a standard that you will feel proud of. I'm not doing this for myself, I'm doing this for the best of my clients. Because the better I am in my skill sets of coaching, the better the benefit the clients will get and gain from this coaching process. And so I've developed this thing called AIMS. Let's aim higher. Let's aim for a better standard. I call this AIMS, AIMS. And this AIMS principle for coaching agreement would really support you in understanding what an ACC level practice will look like. So this is to help you memorize or provide you with a memory aid to guide you with a certain sense of purpose and partnership with your clients. AIMS stands for Ask, A, I, Illuminate, M, Map, S, Stay. So coaching with AIMS means that every single session starts with intention and ends with integrity, honesty, authenticity, realism, and practical. That's the aim that we're trying to achieve. Ask, illuminate, map, and stay. The first one, A, ask. Ask and don't assume. So clarity begins with this sense of curiosity. Always ask the client, hey, what is it that you want to focus on? Avoid assuming based on the previous session or roles or your own interpretation. Ask open, gentle questions to facilitate, to help the client find their voice for the session. Be patient. Don't rush. Understand the context of that session itself. So some of the things you can do, you can practice this. You can ask the client, hey, what would feel most meaningful to explore today? If today's session was meaningful to you, what would that look like for you? So practice some of this. Ask. The second that we want to do, it's I. Illuminate the why. Purpose fuels presence. What's my purpose here in the coaching conversation? Help the client uncover the meaning behind what they want to accomplish. Exploring the why now and not only deepens the agenda but anchors motivation and clarity. You see, the client brings the topic to us in this conversation. I will be curious of why now? Why this topic now? There must be something behind this topic that is impacting the client, and that's why the client wants to bring it here. So don't just ask what, because the client knows what, but ask them why it matters to them. What makes this important for you today? What makes this topic meaningful for you? I'm noticing a sense of urgency. Could you share me more what's happening for you? How does this relate to something deeper for you? Illuminate the why. Next, M. Map the session together. A shared direction prevents accidental detours. So collaboratively define what success will look like by the end of the session. Use the client's words as signposts to stay aligned. Periodically check in to ensure the session is on course or consciously choose to reroute together. So this is where we map, we journey together, we collaborate, we partner with the client, we ask the client, hey client, are we still going in the direction that you like? Would you like to take away something from this time together? Where would you like to be by the end of the session? So defining that success, even exploring the gaps. What do you feel we need to address in today's conversation to help you get to where you like to be? What do you feel is really holding you back in today's conversation that you feel we need to address together? And I like the word map because map gives me that visualization of this place the client wants to navigate to. And the session navigation, it's really about that exploration, the collaborative spirit, to explore what defines success for the client. And finally, we have the letter S. Stay with the client's thread. Thread, it's like that thread of woven line that permeates through the fabric and the texture. So what's threading through the client? Stories, narratives, the context, and where they like to be. So let the client hold the compass, or sometimes I like to say, let the client hold the needle because they are threading that tapestry. Even if the terrain changes, even if it seems like this tapestry is going a different direction, allow the client the space to thread. Even if new ideas emerge, stay aligned to the client's original focus unless they say otherwise. Let them guide the redirection. Don't pivot on their behalf. Don't say, so let's do this, so let's do that. No, let them guide. Let them guide the redirection. Let them reconfirm that. If you get lost, always return back to the original outcome or the agreement as the North Star. Just like threading, right? We may need to go back to the original start point. If you're navigating through rough waters as well, always get back to where we were. So some of the things you can think about today, it's, hey, we've covered a few areas here today, client. Are we still aligned to what you want to focus on today? Are we on the right track? Would you like to stay with this? Or I'm hearing an emerging topic? Or would you like to revisit your original focus? So invite the client, stay with them unless otherwise the client says. So using aims as a way to guide you to prepare your recordings and prepare your coaching performance evaluation. Keep on practicing because I believe that this aims principle is so critical, especially when you're just starting off your coaching journey. You don't want to rush it. It's not a set of questions to be memorized. Today, it's easy to get a script and just memorize it and articulate it, but with no heart at all. You may have a form, a structure, but you lose the essence and the spirit of it all. And what I truly believe in mastering coaching, it's that first, let's develop the coach within, who you are on the inside. Let's explore that. And let's take time. If you need time, take time to practice, to go deeper within yourself. Because as you go deeper, as you work on yourself, the one who gets the most benefit is not just you, the coach, but the client. Because to that depth you've explored within yourself, it is to that depth you will be able to help your clients to achieve what they want in the session. So today, one of the things I want you to focus on today is where are we going in this journey, in this coaching agreement. In fact, what I've just shared with you, if you practice and keep at it, review it, get a certified mentor coach, a certified coach supervisor, get a coach to coach you, experience what coaching is like. Go for proper coaching education and explore what is it like to have mastery level conversations. Mastery is not some fictitious ideas, but it's something that we can practically do to practice. Keep practicing and achieve mastery because coaching truly changes lives. Thank you for tuning in to The Coach Within. If today's episode sparked something in you, take a moment to reflect, journal, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. Want to experience coaching or explore our upcoming programs? Head to jedi.coach or check out our show notes to connect. If this podcast helped you to grow, please follow, share, and leave a review. It helps more people to find us. And until next time, keep listening, keep reflecting, and keep braving your story from within.